Are we?
Yes, we're recording now.
Okay. I'd like to call to order the February 23rd meeting of the Larkspur Planning Commission. And I guess I would call for a roll call.
Okay, and I'll go from my top to bottom. Chair Wagstaff,
Here,
Commissioner Swisher,
Here.
and Vice Chair Kunstler.
Here.
Okay, and for the record, currently Commissioner Tauber and Commissioner Chalmers have not yet gone on the meeting.
also, if there are people in the audience or want to get into the audience, you can go, and you're having trouble with that, you can go to the agenda and there's an email. Otherwise, you'll be, when your item comes up, you'll be called on. You raise your hand. Can we have the director's report? Oh, and I guess I should ask if there's anybody in the public that wants to comment on an item not on the agenda. Do you see anybody, Aaron?
I don't see any hands raised at this time.
Okay, if you come in later, let us know. How about the planning director's report?
Okay, thank you, Chair and members of the commission. Couple of things I do want to report. One is, in case you go driving through along Sir Francis Drake Boulevard through Larkspur Landing, you will notice that there is now a COVID testing site, an outdoor COVID testing site being set up in the Golden Gate Bridge District parking lot. So that is, yeah, I believe that's being run through County Health. I don't know the details on it. We were just informed this morning. It has just started. There'll be information on the website. And just so you're aware of that occurring. Other things going on. We do have I'd like to remind the commission, we do have a City Council strategic planning meeting occurring on Friday morning. It's going to begin at 9 and go to around 11 or noon. There's a number of topics on that meeting. It's going to be a lot of focus on financial update and review, revenue sources, and some discussion on the housing element, RENA, and other housing related planning projects that we have upcoming in concert with adopting the draft general plan. So that may be something, if you can carve out time in your day on Friday morning, that's going to be an activity then. One other item, our assistant planner, Aaron Matthews, who's helping manage the meeting tonight. He is leaving the city. This is his last week. He's going on to greener pastures, has some various opportunities he's exploring. So he will be no longer with the city, and this will put a little added pressure on Kristen and myself in managing the commission's work, as well as some of the day-to-day work in the planning and the building department. We'll be utilizing some services from Lorraine Weiss, who's a consultant that's worked with us in the past and worked with you. And we're looking at other options for consulting and new hiring for these positions. Because of our staff reductions that occurred due to the COVID emergency about a year ago, and some budget constraints that we've had, we're working on a very pretty thin staff to begin with. So it's going to definitely present some challenges. Bear with us. And again, we may be trying to schedule, probably more imperative now, we might for a period schedule back to one meeting a month to consolidate that activity and the tasks that go into doing that. So that's it for our public comments, or excuse me, that's it for my report. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, I just want to thank Aaron for his work over the last year under circumstances which were not terribly helpful. So Aaron, thanks and best of luck to you.
And
Thank
I
you.
would
I have
like to
to say-
second that.
Oh, there you are. Hi. I'll note for the record that Commissioner Tauber has joined the meeting.
And I'd like to third that. We'll miss you, Aaron.
Thank you.
And I would like to say it's Aaron has done a real yeoman's job coming in, barely getting a couple of months of training under his belt, and then having to deal with COVID. We're all working immediately. We were working in rather remote, staggered environment, and he took on a lot of tasks, assisting with what's a variety of duties, some permit tech duties, managing tree permits, resale reports, a lot of building permits. So I hope he's had a good experience here, and it will take him to new heights. Any other questions for me?
No questions here. Since there are no questions, I think we should move on to the public hearing items. The first one in the agenda is Design Review 2024 80 Corte del Bio. And if we could have the staff report on that.
Thank you, Chair Wagstaff. I want to first bring your attention to the late mail that I had received and forwarded to you yesterday and today. Just to have you confirm you did receive them. There were 4 emails from Ms. Joan Weeder, 2 contained very short videos and 2 with photographs. I also forwarded a letter from Len Brifkind, attorney who was representing Ms. Weeder with regard to this project and its potential impacts on her house. Today, I forwarded you 2 emails, one from Caddy Anderson and the second from David Anderson of 70 Corte del Bio, withdrawing their concerns and objections to the project. All of the emails have been linked to the agenda if anyone would like to see them. The agenda that's on the city website. So the applicant has proposed to demo the existing improvements on this site and construct a new 3,570 square foot 2-story residence with a contemporary modular design. The project was previously heard January 12th, 2021, and continued to allow the applicant to address comments provided during the hearing. As the applicant has revised plans with a variety of modifications to address impacts on 70 and 90 Corte del Bio, these changes include shifting some of the massing around, lowering the building height, adding windows on the east side to break up massing of a straight vertical wall, and other items. I know the applicant is here tonight to give you a pretty detailed presentation, so I'm going to let them go through all of the changes in their presentation. The last thing they did was they did withdraw the fence height exception request for a taller fence within the front yard setback. It has now been stepped back behind the required 10-foot front yard setback, and it's only 5 feet in height. So it no longer needs the exception permit. The exterior materials will remain the same as previously proposed to match the house. Since the original hearing, staff has continued to receive some concerns expressed from various neighbors around the neighborhood, largely in relation to the design itself and its massing and their concerns that it's out of scale with the neighborhood. And a variety of photographs were supplied with views of the story poles from the Lagoon side, and those were included in the commission's report. In particular, of the concerns expressed were those presented to you by 90 Corte del Bio, Ms. Weeder, who is very concerned she's going to lose important light and views from her windows facing somewhat westerly or westerly toward this particular property. As noted in the original staff report, homes in this neighborhood are oriented in a side-by-side configuration with their primary viewing windows generally facing front or rear towards the water in all cases. These are the windows that the city tends generally to be most sensitive to and try to protect views, light, and air for. Lesser window views are those that face sideways toward each other's homes. It's much more difficult to control that and allow people reasonable development. So the commission has to consider if the amendments in the design have adequately addressed the concerns expressed by 90 Corte del Bio and such that the design will not result in a significant or unreasonable loss of light, air, and views consistent with the findings in design review and floor area ratio exception, or well, design review in this case. Generally, staff finds it does appear they have addressed the concerns that were expressed during the meeting and made the amendments that the commission appeared to be requesting. Although the massing of the proposed design would be prominent when viewed from the lagoon on the other side of the home, the modifications have somewhat softened the design and given it a bit more articulation and interest when you're just in the rear elevation. Staff recommends the planning commission hear from all interested persons and consider any new information and determine if the amendments as proposed are adequate to address the findings and remove your concerns that you expressed during the prior hearing. If so, staff has prepared the findings for approval for you to consider and all conditions of approval. If the commission does not find that the amendments have adequately addressed your concerns, we would have to continue this application as a business item to allow staff time to prepare findings of denial.
Thank you, Kristen. Does anybody have any questions for Kristen? Seeing none, I would ask that the architect, if he wants to talk about the project, raise your hand and Aaron will call on you.
Okay, Bryn, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. So thank you for commission for hearing us again tonight. I know we had quite an in-depth presentation at our first hearing, so I will keep this brief and just go over, highlight the changes that we've made in response to both the commissioners and the neighbors' comments. So we can go to the next slide, please. So my name is Bryn Garrett. I'm with URC Architects, and I'm representing the client Pascal and Steffi Zuta. And I wanted to just quickly touch on the project goals again because of how important they are to the design that we've arrived at here. You know, Pascal and Steffi bought this property because they fell in love with the location and the natural amenities of the site. Principal of which is the redwood tree in the front yard, which has become quite a challenge in the design. In most cases, the logical way to develop this site would be to expand closer to the street, exactly where the redwood tree is. And so unfortunately, that constraint is what's really pushed the development out towards the water, and it has become sort of the source of some of the pushback from the neighbors. I do want to highlight that the construction method is going to be prefabricated, and again, that was in hopes of minimizing the impact to neighbors and the duration of construction. And we were really trying to be thoughtful with the layout of the house to mimic the existing house to minimize the impact of the massing on the neighborhood. Okay, we can go to the next slide, please. So the site is what's highlighted in red there. And again, it's a pie-shaped lot with a significant amount of the land underwater. I do want to remind commissioners that in the staff report for 97 Corte del Bio, which is the red roofed house, a little bit up and to the right on the same cul-de-sac. In that staff report, a survey was done of FARs in this neighborhood, and the average FAR for homes in this neighborhood is 0.33, when what is allowed is 0.4, the lowest being 0.24 and the highest actually being 0.47. And what we're proposing here is 0.37. So I just want to put that in context. I know that since the story polls have gone up, there's been some reaction about the size of the home. Again, that's mostly driven by the location of the redwood tree and the inability to develop the lot closer to the street. So it's forcing us out towards the water. And also, I don't know if anyone has been in this home when it went up for sale, but the rooms, if you go inside the house, the rooms are quite small. I mean, the kitchen is extremely small. The bedrooms are all substandard sizes. And so for Pascal and Steffi Zuta and their family of 5, you know, we really do need the opportunity to expand in certain areas to make it appropriately sized. Okay, we can go to the next slide. So this is a list of the changes that were recommended by the commission at the last hearing, and also in response to neighborhood feedback. But we also went above and beyond that. Again, you know, we're designers. We've spent a number of years now designing this home, and we care a lot about the final composition. We don't want to just kind of cut things off and, you know, cut appendages off the design and leave it kind of unresolved. So we tried to go above and beyond in these modifications to not only address the issues, but make it the most beautiful project that we can. So I'm going to start with the changes that we made for the feedback from the commission. So let's go to the next slide, please. The first comment was about the fence height exception. As Kristen explained, that was not a big design element for us. It was really about recycling the existing fence. So we've gone ahead and proposed in this latest revision to tear that existing fence down, which was non-compliant, and build a new fence outside of the front yard setback at a compliant 5-foot height. We also are proposing buffering that fence. We're working with a landscape architect to plant out in front of the fence and soften the vertical siding material. I wanted to speak a little bit about the bulkiness of the house, the height. We went back and chased out as much as we could while still maintaining acceptable ceiling heights. So we were able to reduce the height of the structure by 1 foot. That means that we have 9-foot ceilings on the ground floor and 8'6" ceilings on the second floor, which are very modest ceiling heights for new homes. I also want to emphasize that we are one of the first projects to have to comply with new FEMA floodplain requirements that were enacted in January of last year, which requires all houses to be higher for flood insurance. And due to the sloping nature of the site, we actually have a 3-foot drop from the front of the house to the back of the house. So that, combined with the FEMA floodplain requirements, really pushes our house up in elevation, and that's just code requirements. It's not a design element. So we're sort of at the mercy of those restrictions. Okay, let's, and you can see in the plan there, the red dashed line was the old fence, the existing fence, sorry, and we're pushing it back about 7 feet. Go to the next slide, please. So we also have had a lot of dialogue with Joan, the neighbor at 90 Corte del Bio. As we expressed in the first hearing, Pascal shared the initial design with her way back at the beginning of schematic design. And even at that time, she expressed concerns about the shared property line and her westerly views. In response to those comments, prior to the hearing in January, we made modifications, including taking down a shade structure in the back, removing any tall planting that may get in her view, and we also took out a pantry and closet at that southeast corner to minimize the impact on her views and light and air. At the last hearing, Joan spoke of how important that corner of her house is to her, and the commission recommended that we revisit the design to try and provide more light and air and mitigate the impact on her. And so these are the changes that we made. We pushed the easternmost wall in by almost 2 feet. And then we also took a significant chunk out of that corner. So that corner now steps in similar to the existing footprint of the current house. We also reduced the length of that wall, eastern wall that is facing her home, so that it's a little bit more broken up and articulated on that side. We reworked the kitchen and bedrooms. We shrunk the kitchen quite a bit, actually, and took out a notch that's roughly 4.5 feet by 12 feet and 3 inches on both levels. And that resulted in a net reduction of 110 square feet total on that corner. There were concerns about the proximity of the hot tub to the lagoon. We took this opportunity to push that hot tub further back away from the lagoon into the house. And we also surrounded that hot tub with planting to buffer any visual or noise concerns about privacy. We broke up the eastern wall facing her property with some metal articulation and windows, so it's not all just wood siding. And we also have offered to have our landscape architect design planting along that wall to soften it for her as well. And then in these last negotiations, Pascal offered to cut down the fence immediately, cut down the hedge along the fence line immediately as it was growing above 6 feet, which was cut down, I believe, last week, and it will be maintained at that height by our client. So we can go to the next slide. And this is just a review, a view to remind the commissioners of Joan's window facing the corner of our new proposed design. Go to the next slide, please. So here you can see 2 plans. On the left is the ground floor plan. On the right is the second floor plan. You can see how the red dashed line is the initial, was the proposed design from the last hearing. The blue dashed line is the existing house footprint. And you can see how we've pushed this corner way back to respect her views and light and air. We felt like this was a very significant change, and it actually, if you're standing at the property line or in her property looking towards Mount Tam, the angles of these corners are very similar to the current house footprint. We can go to the next slide, please. And here's a rendered view so you can see. And you'll notice how prominent the deck is here and the height of the deck. Again, that goes back to the elevation change in the FEMA floodplain requirements. We did the best we could to soften that deck and the height of the deck by cantilevering it and also putting planting underneath it there. Okay, let's go to the next slide. One of the suggestions from the last hearing was to do a shade study to see the actual impacts of the new proposed design. I know there's a lot of images here, but this sheet reflects the spring equinox. It takes a shot every hour, starting at the top left-hand corner at 8 a.m. and goes all the way till 7 p.m. We highlighted in red there the 3 times a day that we recognize there may be impact. And so let's go and highlight, let's look at a little deeper at those 3 times of the day. On the next slide, please. Sorry, next slide. So here's a juxtaposition. You can see on the left is the existing house, on the right is the proposed. And you'll notice that the shadows on Joan's property at 90 Corte del Bayo are mostly caused by the fence and the hedge. What we removed from these images is actually the large tree that's on her property that actually provides most of the shade on that corner of her house. You can see at 5 p.m. at the spring equinox that there might be some additional shadow from the increased height of the structure. Okay, we can go to the next slide. We also ran the shadow study at summer solstice. And again, you can see the time of day where the only time of day where we really saw any impact was the late afternoon, 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. Let's go to the next slide, please. And again, existing on the left, proposed on the right. The perceptible difference is very minor. I mean, the shadows I'm seeing are mostly from the fence line. It looks like the height of our structure again may shade her side yard and roof later in the afternoon. Okay, let's go to the next slide. And it's very similar, winter solstice again. It's only 5 p.m. and later that we have some impacts to the side yard. But you'll notice even in winter solstice at 5 p.m., if you follow the shadow line coming off the corner of our structure, it is actually not shading her westerly window, which is within that southernmost corner there that points out of her house. That's still in sun. Okay, go to the next slide. And you can see it's already dark, getting dark by 6 p.m., so it's not much impact. You can see the red line there indicates that shadow line does not quite hit her, her window. Okay, next slide. To Kristen's point about views over other properties and the pie-shaped nature of this cul-de-sac, you know, everyone's primary views are out, radiating out of the cul-de-sac. Joan has objected to the impact of her view over our property. And we just wanted to put that in context that her house was designed with primary views. You can see there everything shown in yellow. And the impact of our proposed design is less than 2.5% of the overall view that she captures from her home. There were some comments about her kitchen window, which if you can see there is in the side yard halfway along her wall from the street to the lagoon. It's indicated in teal. That's a side yard window that's been blocked by tall hedges that should have been cut by the previous owner of our property, but were not. But those hedges have been very tall for dating back to 2008, as evidenced by Google imagery photographs and street view. So the impact to that window is actually been improved since we've cut down, Pascal agreed to cut down the hedges along that fence line to 6 feet. Let's go to the next slide, please. The other neighbor at 70 Corte del Bayo, we've worked with a lot in the last few weeks and have come to an agreement that the new proposed design is acceptable and meets the request that they had. So just to go over that quickly, we actually pushed in the westernmost wall on the second floor by 2 feet 2 inches. We created a balcony at that corner where the master bedroom was, cut out of approximately 4 feet by 10 feet, which increased the view from their attic art studio. We removed one of the 2 west-facing windows that were a privacy concern. We also agreed to frost the bottom half of the bathroom window for privacy concerns. And then in order to make up for all of these reductions in square footage on both sides of the house, we actually had to push out over the garage a little further. Again, one of the constraints of the redwood tree, but we still maintain a step back of 6.5 feet from the face of the garage to provide articulation and architectural interest at the front facade. Let's go to the next page. And this is a photograph of the 70 corded del Bio from the current bedroom on the west side. So the window in question was there. It's an attic studio, and we made those shifts to mitigate the impact of the views to the lagoon from that window. Let's go to the next slide, please. So here's an overall plan. This shows the changes on the second floor. You can see all the areas shaded in red are the reductions of the footprint for both neighbors. I have to say this has been a very challenging process to meet the requests of both neighbors while not negatively impacting the other with the adjustments on one side. So we feel like we've come to a great balance, and we feel like the moves that we made are significant while still trying to preserve a nice design for our client. Okay, let's go to the next slide, please. And again, just another view showing the step back on the western side there, you can see. And the next slide, please. So this is just recapping again all the changes that we've made since the last hearing. And I'll leave it at that.
Does anybody have any questions for Brian?
Excuse me, I do. I'm referring to pages A2.01 and .02, and actually you've got them up on the, you have them up on the screen. It's really those pages where you show the floor plans for the lower and the upper floors. And my eyes sort of migrated to the eastern part of the home, so the area where the bedroom number 3 is, and then downstairs where the kitchen is. And what I found myself wondering, well, first of all, I guess my first question is the upstairs hallway that leads to that bedroom 3 into the bathroom which serves it. Maybe you can go to that. Yeah, right there. So that hallway that leads to bedroom number 3 into the bathroom is there a code requirement that hallway be of that width? And then I'll show you where I'm going with that.
You can hear me still?
Yeah.
Okay. There is code requirements for hallway widths. This is I believe this is a 4-foot wide hallway, which is very standard. I wouldn't suggest going any smaller than that, but was that your question?
Well, yeah. Well, then maybe my question is moot from your standpoint, which was, well, if you could, I was wondering if you could slide that eastern section of the house a few feet, like 2 to 3 feet further to the, I guess it'd be to the north, because that the end of that hallway doesn't really, so that the few feet between the bedroom door and I guess it's a window there. It really doesn't serve any particular purpose. I mean, you could definitely put a bench or something there. But I was wondering if you could slide that element, and then of course the area downstairs equivalently a little bit to the north. That would liberate more of that notch area and free it up. And then, with a sort of a positive impact on the views from number 90 del Bio. That's what I found myself wondering. I was wondering if one of you could respond to that.
Yeah, usually if it's a short hallway, you can get away with a 42-inch width. For a hallway that's this long though, I mean, 4 feet is kind of the bare minimum that we do in any of our homes, based on the length of that segment there. There are, I would say that there are other impacts to making that shift. It's not just about narrowing that hallway, but then as you track that change over to the left-hand side, the western side of the house, I mean, everything would get smaller.
You would,
Yeah, I mean,
you would lose a few square feet in order to continue to respect the 6-foot setback line that you've got there. Um, so I recognize that, and I recognize that that bedroom at 134 square feet is not, is not exactly, the presidential suite of the Four Seasons.
yeah.
But I was wondering if that would be feasible. I'm just trying to imagine ways where you could further alleviate the light and line of sight issues for number 90. So is something like that out of the question from your standpoint?
Um, from a design perspective, I'm hesitant to, in our eyes, these rooms are already all undersized. They're very small. Those beds you see there are not even queen size beds. Those are full size beds. Our clients putting so much effort and time and money into this design to give them a house that has rooms that are all compromised like that. I would just feel it's an unfair ask. I mean, if there was a way we could shift the whole house up without shrinking what are already small rooms, I would be, more open to that. I just don't see there's much fat here to cut, really.
Okay, well, and then, but shifting the whole house forward, actually, you would probably have to shift it slightly westward also because of the setback.
Correct. It would negatively impact the neighbor to the west. Yeah.
Um, and then you've got the redwood tree. Okay, well, thank you. Asked and answered. Thank you.
I actually had a question having to do with the deck. My understanding is FEMA wouldn't, the FEMA flood height wouldn't apply to a deck. Is that your understanding too?
Yes, yes and no. There's some things that are connected to the height of deck. So for instance, you would need to provide a flush transition for a certain depth, and I don't know exactly what that is offhand, outside of the doors that lead are out onto the deck. So the deck would have to maintain that height for a certain distance, and then it could step down technically per code.
Yeah, I guess I'm just thinking on Ms. Weeder's side, whether it would be possible to step it down. And it seems like it would be, by code, obviously you can't go out and onto a step.
Right.
But you can go out onto a 3-foot wide area or a different area that then steps down a few feet.
Mhm.
And maybe that would work a little better on her end in any case, but it was just more a question.
Okay.
I as an architect, I hate being nitpicked.
It's okay.
All right, thanks.
Yeah.
Does anybody else have any other questions? In that case, I think if is the owner here? Can you tell? Does the owner
Yes.
say anything before we open it up to the public?
Let's see. Pascal, you can unmute yourself if you'd like to say.
Yeah, I'm here. So, yeah, we worked really hard, and I worked really hard to get to this design. This feels like Tetris, because we're being pushed from both sides, and we've been pushed quite, let's say, in a determined way. We're very happy that we've resolved this with the Andersons in a very nice and neighborly fashion. In fact, I was there yesterday and talked to them, and I think all is good on that side. And in fact, we've tried the same. We've tried the same with Joan. We've been over there, and I've tried to do all what I can, cut the hedges, and we're going back. And what we're doing right now is really minimally building out compared to what we're doing, what we have right now, what's currently there. And so that minimal change that is there is hopefully acceptable for the commission. Our architect was there today with Ms. Wieder, just to be there and to discuss. We had multiple neighbors as well come out who were supporting us in the last hearing, like, for example, Sam Kim, and trying to explain and trying to make sure that we all see that. Well, we've done all of that. We are happy to add more greenery on the side. We've actually hired a landscape architect who we've given the explicit direction to make sure that we have something nice on the side to grow up there and to make it even feel a little bit nicer. When I think about looking at this angle from Ms. Wieder's perspective, now there is a window, there is different materials, there is metal there. We've cut down the hedge ASAP, literally within a couple of days, I think, going back to this very minimal thing here. And actually, we've given up a lot. We've given up, I think, 177 square feet. Our kitchen now is, I think, 160 square feet. I think I've never seen a house that hopefully is going to be worth quite a lot of money when it's done. And we have 136 square foot kitchen. I think that honestly, when we're reselling this will become a problem for some buyers. But you know, we ourselves, we have a lot of kids, we do a lot of mac and cheese, so you know, we can live with it. But I think that's already the end of everything we can do, and I would hope that this is visible to the commission now. And we've done our best, and we will continue to do our best to build this house into a nice looking corner also from Joan's side. And yeah, so we're building this, as I said in the first meeting, we're Germans, and Germans build one house in their life. We build the house, we move in, we stay there. That's our dream home. And we are very, very much looking forward to moving into this and to hopefully enjoy the end of the year already there.
Does anybody have any questions for the owner, Pascal? I do have, again, one question, and maybe it's more for the architect, but it's also for Pascal's. When I look at the drawing, it would appear that you could drop the deck on Joan's side, because there's no doors going out to that deck. And even if you went down a foot or two, the hot tub would be just a bit lower. And it wouldn't be quite so up in the air on that side. And I don't think that would be a major design change if you're willing to do it.
Yeah, I can speak to that a little bit. I think you know, it was something we studied early on, kind of dividing up the deck, and it does really impact to the way you can furnish it and what you can do out there. If I guess this is the first time we're hearing about the deck height as a concern, and I understand that. So if that is a big sticking point, we can of course look at that and look at lowering that corner if that was a problem. Yeah.
I agree, it's possible, but on the other side, I like the way that it's built right now, and it's I've been there in Joan's room, and it's not in the view, and it will never be in the view. So I don't know if we're fixing something that is actually not broken there, with all due respect.
I'm thinking more of just the activity level out there, because if it's dropped and you have people using in the hot tub, and it just provides a little more privacy for both people. But again, I'm not sure exactly where I stand yet on that. So
I understand. I'm just a little bit, well, I'm not sure if it would help it that much. Well, as Brent said, if it's a sticking point, if it's something that you say that swings a decision, then happy to do it. If not, then I'd say then, well, it's probably not the main problem. I think that what is, just putting myself into Ms. Weider's shoes, or better, chair, and thinking about the view, I do believe that the step back that we've done is important. The different massing, the different materials are important. And if I were her, I would think that whatever we can do to green that up, that corner, will make her view just much more pleasing. So I would think that this has more impact. But as I said, if this is a sticking point, I don't want to oppose it.
thank you.
Just a note, if the hot tub in particular is a concern, I mean, it appears it's possible to shift it over to the other side of the deck, and where it's more screened by the building. There's a nice little nook there that they have designed in that doesn't appear to have doors to it. Just something to consider if the main concern is just that the hot tub is located there, where it will, people using it may impact Joan.
Well, well, we can, if Joan thinks that this impacts her, we can discuss that. I don't think that's her main concern. The reason why that is there is that's the corner where you actually do get, if you build it out that much, you actually do get the mountain view. That's why it's there. If you're getting too close on the other side, you're losing that, and that's why we're doing that. But again, I always appreciate comments from every side, and you guys are all experienced architects, and I'm not, by all means. But for the issue in place, just that one, I don't think that this has never come up.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
Sure.
I think now I'd like to open up the meeting to others who would like to speak on the project. And Aaron, can you see any hands raised?
Yes, we have Deborah Harnett with her hand raised. Deborah, you should be able to unmute yourself now.
Hi, I live at 50 Corte del Bio and have been there for 14 years and love where I live, and I'm excited to have our new neighbors. I'm concerned about the height, and I know you're working with a lot of stipulations to meet code. But I couldn't help thinking when I went through all the drawings that you could very easily have 8-foot height, ceiling heights in bedrooms. It's a very standard and acceptable and nice height, and that they could save another 6 inches and not go up quite as high, and have the height on the first floor and enjoy the height on the first floor. And then on the bedroom side would just be 8 feet high. I'm concerned that we're setting a precedence that from this forward on, that it's bigger and bigger houses keep moving in, and it starts to change the feeling of the neighborhood, which everybody loves.
Thank you, Deborah. Is there anything else you would like to add?
No, thank you very much.
All right, thanks. Is there anyone else out there with their hand up?
I don't see any other hands raised right now. Or oops. Sorry, someone raised their hand and then they took it away, but there are no other hands raised at this time. Oh, okay, we have a couple hands now. So Joan, you should be able to unmute yourself now.
I did. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I appreciate very much the interest of the Zutas in having their dream house. 40 years ago, I moved in to my dream house. I had wonderful light, and it was in my kitchen and my family room also. I don't want to take away their dream, but I don't want it also to be at the sacrifice of my dream. Now, I noticed that a mention was made of the excessive height of the bushes separating our homes. I have petitioned for years for the city and the homeowners to have the bushes maintained at the requisite 6-foot height. As the city might recall, at the last meeting, Mr. Zuta promised, and he has kept that promise, to have the bushes cut. And I really greatly appreciate it. But if you could, as one of the commissioners, availed himself of the opportunity to look from my kitchen window, I have from my kitchen window a beautiful view of the lagoon. If you look at the story poles, that view is completely abrogated by the story poles. I won't be able to get the light or the air if the project is approved as is. I don't think that the maintaining of the bushes in violation of both the Homeowners Association, CCNRs, and the city code should privilege the taking away of my air and views just because they had maintained at an improper height. Also, if you look the other way toward the west out of my kitchen window, by building at the proposed height toward the west, the bedroom, second floor, also blocks the sky and light from my kitchen window. And I still get the view of the mountain of Christmas Tree Hill and the sunset from my chair with the proposed modifications. Now, I don't see why one person's dream should abrogate another person's dream. I didn't notice that the hot tub was going to be at the end of the deck at my end. I love children, and I would be very happy to have the Zuta's children living next door. But I don't understand why, with him wanting to have the Mount Tam views with the placement of the hot tub, should say, I want this because I love those Mount Tam views, are any different than my saying, I love my views of Christmas Tree Hill, of the sunsets that I see, particularly now that I'm 81. I have some medical problems, and I spend 12 hours a day, a lot of the time, in my chair that has no other placement in my home than where it currently is. And I enjoy looking at the particular view that it has. I'd love to be able to work at other solutions. I know that you love the redwood tree. The redwood tree was planted well after I purchased my house. Is it the position of the city of Larkspur and the planning commission and the applicant that trees are more important than people. I don't understand. I appreciate that you want to modify my looking at your house by putting plantings, but you want to look at Mount Tam from your hot tub. I want to look at the mountains and the sunset from my chair. Let's see if we can reach an agreement where we can all share and appreciate our lots and our living conditions. That's all I want to say. We love where we live. Let's love being neighbors.
Thank you, Joan.
That's all.
Are there any other hands up, Aaron?
I did see Len's hand going up and down, so I'm going to give him the permission to speak. Len, if you'd like to speak, you can unmute yourself.
Your address, please.
Len Rifkind. Can everybody hear?
Yes, we can hear you.
I apologize. I'm going to turn off my computer.
Sorry. Looks
Still
like
there?
no. It looks like he's no longer an attendee.
It was kind of echoey.
Right. So he's no longer an attendee in the meeting.
Should we give him a minute, or do you think he's going to come back on? Or
I'm not sure. Other than that, there are no other hands raised.
well, I'm going to bring it back to the commission, and if he comes or shows up, or maybe we can fit him in at that point.
Sure.
I would like to start with Commissioner Swisher and what your thoughts are on what we've heard.
Well, my thoughts are that the Zutas have done a lot to compromise the design integrity. They've worked, I think, diligently to make as many reasonable modifications with the existing design. So I think really our choices, and I definitely appreciate Judge Weider's concerns about her views, and I mean, everybody does have an entitlement to their dream, but it's not possible to always have 100% that everybody gets everything that they want in this situation. And I think that our only choices here is to basically reject the design entirely, because I don't know if there's any more architectural modifications that can be made. Vis-a-vis taking something like the tree down, I think one of the Larkspur, I don't know how you'd say it, but one of the most desirous things about living in Larkspur is the fact that we are a city of trees, and trees are important. I remember reading in college a book called "Do Trees Have Standing?" And I do believe they do have standing. And I think that, when possible, we should preserve the redwood trees. And so I think that I would be in favor of the project with the modifications as designed. As far as the hot tub and the deck goes, I mean, maybe that some kind of arrangement can be made there. But I like the design as it is. I really like the cantilever deck. I think they've done a very tasteful design. As far as that one concern about the ceilings being, lowered upstairs, again, I think that I understand the issue with bulking, but I think that the design is, it would lose an element of architectural consistency if that ceiling was lowered as proposed. So I'm in favor of granting the proposal as it stands.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Sorry, Chair Wagstaff. Len appears to be back as an attendee. Do we want to let him speak at this time?
Yeah, let's let him speak.
Okay. Len, you should be able to unmute yourself now.
Hi, can everyone hear?
Yes.
I'm so sorry. I attempted my laptop from home instead of my computer at the office, and so I should learn better. But in any event, Lynn Rifkind Law Group, representing Joan Weider. And I appreciate the Planning Commission's time and attention to this project. I know it takes time to do this, but it's really important in a particular case like this where neighbors have this tension between them about specific views, to actually see the views, to actually sit in Joan Weider's chair or the vantage points that she's talking about from her kitchen or a family room window. Absent that, I think it's a very hard and difficult task before you if you don't actually see it. So Ms. Weider, as you understand, opposes design review approval for this project. And the reason why she opposes design review approval is because, unfortunately, even with the good faith modifications that have been made by the applicant, they still materially block light and water views from her kitchen and her family room. And the best way that I think I can make an analogy of this is like before COVID, when we all used to go to movie theaters and someone tall, I'm short, sat in front of me, then yeah, I can't see the screen because there's a tall person in front of me. And that's the analogy that I think is happening here. And it's unfortunate. And so how do you mitigate that in the movie theater? I guess you have stadium seating. And how do you mitigate that here? You have really good design that figures out how to address this. And we are trying, members of the commission. I personally invited the project applicant and the project applicant's attorney, who I know well, to Ms. Weider's house this afternoon so they could see the vantage points that we were concerned about directly: the kitchen window that faces west and the family room window that faces south and westerly. And so while there isn't agreement, the reason why, when you saw some diagrams from the project architect earlier in a slideshow where he says, oh, look, we're almost at the same place as the original house. Well, unfortunately, no, you're not. If you stand at those windows, there's building blocking where there's now light and water. And one of the mandatory design review findings that this commission has to make in order to grant design review is Larkspur Municipal Code section 18.64.050B. What does that say? That requires compatibility with neighbors. So there's not compatibility yet, unfortunately. The project as designed creates unreasonable loss or interference with light, solar access, and prominent scenic views. And the only way you can know this is by going to the property and seeing it. And we do thank Commissioners Wagstaff and Kunstler who have actually done that. And so we applaud their efforts for doing that. So the design solution here, I'm a lawyer, not an architect, and so I'm not going to pretend to tell people how to design something. But obviously, if you have building that's materially in the way, you have to get the building out of the way. I don't know whether that's shifting north, shifting west, making the entire building a little bit smaller. I will talk about size constraints just briefly. I think that FAR is one of the best indicators of intensity of development. Unfortunately, on this lot, you have almost 39% of the water of the lot in the water, so that leaves 61% of the land above ground, and you have a 3,500 square foot building on a 6,000 square feet of land left, and so you're approaching 60% effective FAR, even though technically it's the 0.37, which is still near the top end of the range. You really have a lot of development going on this small patch of ground. And so I think that's indicative for the commission that you can figure out and give direction to this applicant to just squeeze it down just a little bit. And I think that we can reach agreement. I think you heard from Judge Weider. We understand that she's going to see the house. We understand that she doesn't get, she's not entitled to the same views that she's had for the last 40 years. There's going to be compromise here, but there's not enough compromise yet. And so with that, we urge the commission at this point to either deny the application or continue it with direction. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you.
Okay, Bryn has his hand up, the architect. Do we want to let him speak?
Yes, let's let him speak, please.
Bryn, you should be able to.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Aaron. Just to respond to those comments, I did want to correct the analogy of the movie theater. I mean, this would be like turning to the person to your right and saying that they're blocking your view of the screen. If we could go just a couple pages up back in the presentation to the diagram of the site plan with the views.
Oh.
Here we go. So I just wanted to point out, because I think the location of some of these windows is being misrepresented, in that you can see the teal window on the western wall there is the kitchen window at Joan Weider's house. And that is squarely right in the middle of the parcel looking to the west. And anything short of leaving the existing home as is going to impact that window. It faces right into a side yard. And I don't want to lose sight of the fact that the nature of the cul-de-sac, all of these homes have their pie-shaped lot, have their view out of this cul-de-sac. And Joan Weider's view is to the east. And I appreciate her view. I visited today, and it's lovely, the corner living room that she has there in her chair. But to say that what we've done to mitigate the impacts is not significant would be, a complete understatement here. Our house happens to face further west, and that's kind of in our client's right to have their views. So those were my comments.
Thank you, Brian. I'd like to formally close the public hearing and bring it back to Commissioner Kunstler for comment.
Thank you, Chair Wagstaff. So this one is not. This is not easy, and there's not one single element that can be construed as problematic. So let me try to sort of run through what my thoughts are. As I said last time, there were some elements of the design that I did find attractive, particularly when viewed from the lagoon, the rear of the house. It wasn't quite as crazy about the front of the house. And also appreciated sort of the environmental benefits of doing the modular construction technique. At the same time, we have to consider, and I have considered, the issue of the loss of light and scenic view from Joan Weider's house, and this can't be dismissed as immaterial because in fact it is material. What the Larkspur Code tells us is that, well, the real test is not necessarily one of materiality, but really a test of reasonableness. So the question then becomes, is the loss that she is experiencing reasonable in the overall context of this project? And if you run them down, there's definitely the issue of that corner of the house and the loss of view from that vantage point. But even from the kitchen, there is an impact on how much light the kitchen will get, not due to that southeast corner of the house, but due to the height of the structure above the garage. So these are things that are, they're not imaginary. These are issues that in fact are real. And I sort of have to, again, sort of see, well, does the project pass a test of reasonableness, even if I do have to conclude that the issues are material? And that's what I've been struggling with. The other part is, I guess, essentially the size of the house. You're looking at 3,500 square feet, which which is a large home, and granted, it's it's a family of 5. Understand that. But the overall design program does still leave me with the impression of a lot that's somewhat overbuilt. Now, I guess I could ascribe some of that to the fact that the redwood tree is kind of in the way and does limit the the options that are available to the applicant. I do understand that, and maybe absent the redwood tree, it would not give the same the same impression of overbuilding a lot. But as it stands now, that's kind of the impression that I've got. So if I combine all of these two things, it's not one or the other, but it's both in combination that sort of leave me hesitant. And Chair Wagstaff, I don't know if I want to quite pronounce myself yet. I would like to to use my privilege of copping out and and listening to what the others have to say. But those are my thoughts. It's, again, there are some definite positive things about the design program, as I said last time. But these issues are real. They're not imaginary.
Thank you. Commissioner Tauber.
Thank you. I've been listening carefully to all of the discussion and the public comment. This is hard. I did not go to Ms. Whiter's house and see the view, so I guess I'm kind of relying on the 2 commissioners that did for materiality. So beyond that, I think it feels to me like the applicant has made a tremendous amount of effort to listen to the concerns of the 2 neighbors and has made significant modifications. I actually like the house a lot. I think it's quite a handsome design. I liked it before, and I think as I said, there's been a tremendous amount of effort in trying to work with the neighbors. So my inclination is actually to approve based on the shadow study and the view corridor study and the other things that have been presented. But I guess I'm sort of looking to the 2, as I said, the 2 commissioners who actually have gone and seen the view from the chair.
Thank you. I guess that brings it back to me. And I actually sat in the chair. So I did not sit in the chair recently with the story poles moved, but I feel that the fact that that corner moved 4 foot 4 or 5 inches is actually a pretty significant change to how much visibility it allows. And when you talk about compatibility, it doesn't mean there won't be impacts. These are side-by-side houses with really kind of odd zoning in a way, because they're much smaller lots than they appear. You've got 40% is water, so you've got a 0.55 FAR or higher on most of these houses, or in that neighborhood. I also think that we gave the applicant direction last time, asking him to move that corner or deal with that corner. And I think they did more than I expected. I like the house. I think the only other option, and I don't think it's a matter of moving 6 inches at a time, because that's not going to satisfy anybody, and it's hugely expensive to do that kind of thing, is the redwood tree. And the redwood tree kind of is the focal point in a way. They kept the redwood tree, and that dictated the house location and the house configuration. So I think I can make findings for approving the project, and I guess that's where I am. So having said all that,
I guess if you're ready, I would like to make a motion to approve it with the modifications as presented to us tonight. And with the you know, the recommended, as recommended by staff.
do I have a second to the motion?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Yeah, I guess I'm going to go aye also, having listened to my fellow commissioners.
The project is approved. There's a 10-day appeal period. And thank you, everybody, for showing up. I guess, is Natasha in the room, or whatever it's called on Zoom?
I don't see Natasha Chalmers as a panelist.
Kristen or Neil? Are you-
This is Neil. Natasha asked me to let her know when the item is over, so I just let her know. He had gotten home and was prepared to call in. So let me see if she's
Looks like she's on now.
okay.
Okay, in that case,
By the way, Chairman Wagstaff, I'm in the office, but I'm going to go ahead and exit now. I have a long day tomorrow. I'm going to leave you in the capable hands of our senior planner
okay,
to complete the
you can
meeting.
talk on your car phone. Thanks.
Okay, so have a good night.
Yeah, thank you. I would like to have the staff report for design review 1949 203 Hawthorne Avenue.
Thank you, Chair Wagstaff. Just pointing out again that we did receive one item of late mail, which I forwarded, well, the assistant planner forwarded on my behalf from 10 Willow, which is below this project. Excuse me. So this project proposes to demo the existing improvements on the lot, which include a single family home and a detached accessory structure, and to construct a new single family home, 2 stories of 1,850 square feet. Excuse me. The lot is 6,128 square feet and it has an average grade of 30%. The project was first heard November 23rd, 2020, but was continued to allow the applicant to amend the plans based on comments and concerns provided to them during the hearing. As designed, the residents will comply with the standard zoning, including lot coverage, height, setbacks, natural state, but will exceed the permitted floor area and would be provided with only 2 parking spaces where 4 are required on site. Generally, during the November 23rd hearing, the Planning Commission was supportive of the design and concept, the requested variances, the grading program, and the fence height exception, but agreed the design required some modification to reduce the impacts on views for the home next door at 207 Hawthorne, as well as to reduce impacts for proposed grading on the root zone of a tree located along the side property line on 207 Hawthorne Avenue. The applicant submitted revised plans that have included shifting the home in the footprint up and further away from 207, minimizing grading in that side yard area, lowering this tower for the stairway, all intended to improve the sight lines for the home at 207 from their primary windows in their kitchen. In addition, in doing so, they did expand the kitchen area of the proposed home slightly to the rear, and they proposed more grading in the basement area. Much of this floor area in the basement is more than 50% below grade and does not count as additional floor area. So not all of it counts, and it doesn't really add to the bulk and mass of the home. So the total square footage for the home started at 1,792 square foot net, and now it's 1,850 square foot net. Generally, it appears the applicant has addressed the concerns provided by the Planning Commission during the November 23rd hearing. Revisions have improved the design's relationship with the surrounding properties. The grading is largely restricted to the building footprint, and the modest expansion of the floor area as proposed has really not increased the massing or changed the appearance of the design. The major change in the appearance has been the lowering of the staircase roof line, which used to be a little taller. Therefore, staff has recommended that the commission determine if you agree that the applicant has adequately addressed these concerns from the last meeting. And if so, we have provided you with findings and conditions of approval for your consideration. And that concludes my report.
I would also like to add that I was not present at that previous meeting, and I believe neither was Commissioner Tauber. But I've looked over the previous plans and read the minutes, and I'm pretty up to date on what went on at that point. And I believe we both are. So just wanted to make that clear. Does anybody have any questions for Kristen on this? If not, is there anybody in the audience who would like to speak to this item? You see anybody, Aaron?
Looks like Chris has their hand raised. Chris, you can unmute yourself now.
Perfect. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Kristen, thank you very much for that.
Can you give your whole name and address if you could?
Sure. I'm Chris Schrader. I'm the applicant and designer for the project.
Okay.
Sorry about that. So again, I'm Chris Schrader, the project applicant designer. Really, thank you, Kristen, for your time on the revised design and staff report. At the original meeting, we had at least one neighbor's letter of support and received positive feedback from members of the commission regarding the overall design. We now have an additional letter that finds the design acceptable from a neighbor immediately adjacent. And as Kristen mentioned, that comes from 10 Willow. Due to the time of the previous staff report and neighbor's letter of concern, we didn't have sufficient time to make the revisions to the application prior to the hearing. But we did use the time to verbally respond to these concerns and explain how we plan to address them. We do hope you find the changes that we suggested implementing during the last meeting and now shown in the revised application in front of you to be satisfactory in addressing all those concerns. If I may, I'd like to start by restating the items brought forth in the original hearing from both 207 Hawthorne and the staff report. There were three main areas of concern: massing of the stairwell roof, impacts to the heritage elm tree number 6, and the potential view loss from 207 Hawthorne. As stated in the prior hearing, we revised the design to address all the concerns brought forth in what amounts to several substantial concessions. I'm going to go ahead and describe those three and what we did in detail. The first one being the massing of the stair roof. The staff was unable to make required findings supporting any second level equivalency based on our proposal for floor area exception. In response to this, we lowered the stairwell roof approximately 2.5 feet to match the main roof ridge. By doing this, the change eliminated all second floor equivalency. Additionally, as we were retaining the same floor elevation as originally proposed, the result will be we'll have the house being further nestled into the hillside and minimize its impact from neighboring properties and also from the road. This addresses both bulk, massing, views from 207 Hawthorne, as well as the proximity to the lower limbs of that tree that was in question, the heritage elm. The next one was the tree. That was a big item, actually. To ensure the health of this tree, we removed the adjacent eastern retaining wall and entry door at the lower level from the scope of work. This results in no new work or grading in that critical root zone, and all improvements near the tree will be within the existing footprint only. let's see. In conjunction with the elimination of the eastern retaining wall and entry door, we did add floor area to the lower level under the kitchen. Additional floor area was also added to the lower level towards the rear, since the new modified location of the footprint requires additional grading. The building footprint is now consistent between both levels. Before, they kind of jogged, and the lower level was smaller than the upper. We believe these items combined are satisfactory compromise to the concern over impacts to the heritage elm. And then finally, we had to address the potential view loss from 207 Hawthorne. In response to those concerns from the neighbor, we shifted the building footprint northwest along the eastern setback line, 5.5 feet northwest. This resulted in pushing the residents as far back to the north setback line as possible, and actually increases the views to the west of Mount Tam 207 Hawthorne than they have right now. So their views are increasing by this move. This new location will also reduce the building mass as seen from the residence. I think this was something I mentioned before. As a reminder, the proposed residence right now is only 7 feet higher. So we went from a 1-story to a 2-story, but at the same time, we're only going up by 7 feet total in height. It also should be noted that this compromise will significantly reduce or eliminate the eastern bay and water views that is currently enjoyed by 203 Hawthorne, as well as Mount Tam, actually. So by pushing this house further into the hillside and up into the northern direction, we slowly had to basically minimize our views in order to allow 207 to maintain their views or expand upon them. We believe these revisions, which come with a substantial concession to our project's views, more than adequately address the concerns of 207 Hawthorne. And beyond that, the only other change that was made was we added some floor area to the kitchen, which Kristen mentioned, which resulted from the new location of the building and its relationship to the rear topography of the lot and the setbacks. So to summarize, we're proposing solutions with substantial compromise to each of the 3 areas of concern, and requesting your consideration and approval of this project, as we believe it will positively impact the neighborhood. Happy to answer any questions you have. Thank you for your time.
Does anybody have any questions for Chris? Thank you, Chris. Is there anybody else in the audience that wishes to speak to this project?
I don't see any hands raised right now.
In that case, I will bring it back to the commission, and I will start with Commissioner Chalmers, since she is now here.
Hi, thank you. I did have one question I wanted to start with is, I know in the last hearing on this property, the neighbor at 207 had written about the views, and I know I can see now that the architect has addressed a lot of those issues. Have we heard back from the neighbor at 207? I saw the letter from them confirming that they were okay with no new story poles, but does that mean that they're also okay with the new design? Is there any additional commentary on that?
The neighbors have not contacted me to express any continued concern with the plans. That's about the best answer I can give you. They were advised that the revised plans were available to view in our pending applications file on the city website, and I believe they've seen them.
Okay. Actually, while you've been talking, I see his hand. There's a Ben with a hand up, but I'm not sure if that's the same Ben or if they're even permitted to speak right now. How does that work?
Well, since it would address your question, perhaps we should allow him to speak.
I think let's allow him to speak.
Ben, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Hey, yeah, this is Ben Parsons. We are the neighbors next door. We've just been kind of following along. I wasn't planning on speaking, but we've reviewed the new plans in depth, and we also reviewed the story poles and have a pretty good sense for what the new design looks like. And I think we're we've passed this along to Bill and Jill, and sorry, we should probably have followed up with the planning commission given our last letter, but yeah, big picture, I think it's a super complicated lot, and no design is going to be ideal, but I think taking all of the changes as a whole, I think we're okay with it. So we appreciate the changes that have been made, and it's nothing's going to be perfect, but I think taking it all into consideration, we're good with it.
Thank you, Ben. Does anybody have any questions?
No.
Okay, we'll bring it back to the commission.
Thank you. Thank you. And that addressed actually my one question. So thank you for allowing that to be asked and answered. So shall I continue?
Yes.
Well, great. So, I do recall that this was a very, very challenging site, and I can see that the architect has addressed the issues that we raised in the last meeting. And having heard what I just heard now, it seems like all the sort of concerns that I did have been addressed. So I really don't have that much to say on this. I like that the tree is going to stay in place, and they've taken care of that, and that the Geotech and Department of Public Works were involved as well and have reviewed this as well. So I think I can make the findings on this.
Okay. How about Commissioner Kunstler?
Yeah, I can pretty easily make the findings on this one as well. I do think all the concerns were adequately addressed, and I guess more to the point, addressed to the satisfaction of the neighbors. Sort of a challenging situation, but I believe that the design really does fit the conditions on the ground very well. So I can make the findings.
And Commissioner Tauber?
I was not here when this was heard the first time, but I did go look at the site and I did review the plans and such, and was really struck by how difficult a site it is. So I'm very happy to hear that the neighbors are okay with the revisions, and I could make the findings.
And Commissioner Swisher?
Well, I'm going to sound like a good old tree hugger, but I really appreciate the work to make a live oak and not have to be harmed. I think that's great. I like the design, and I think you've done a great job with the modifications. I said before, I really like the design, and I like it even better now, so I could make the findings.
And I would like to say I'm glad I did not try to look at the site 5 days after knee surgery. But I think it's a handsome house, and I can certainly make the findings. So would somebody like to make a motion?
Sure, I would love to do that. I would move to approve design review, floor area ratio exception, slope use permit, variance, heritage tree removal permit, and fence height exception permit, 19-49 for 203 Hawthorne Avenue.
Who seconded?
I will.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So it passes. There is a 10-day appeal period, and it'll be fun to see it built. So let's go on to the approval of the minutes. Would somebody like to move to approve the minutes? Which was mostly Neil talking.
I'll move to approve the minutes of February 9th, 2021.
And is there a second?
Yeah, I can second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm going to abstain because I missed that meeting.
Right, that's true. Is there any planning commissioner reports? None? I don't see any. Would somebody like to move to adjourn?
I'll move to adjourn.
Second?
I can
Second.
say. Oh.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All right.
All right,
All right, everybody.
adjourned formally.